What's going on, guys? Welcome to another Brand to Table podcast. This one's going to be a short and quick one, guys. I just got back from London and I picked up a few takeaways that I wanted to share with you. I thought that I was quite surprised. Before I left, there were so many friends and family saying, "Oh, Guy, you're going to London. The food's going to suck. Everybody hates Americans over there." And I was quite surprised that that was not the case. So I took some notes and wanted to share those notes with you because I think there is quite a few takeaways that you are going to be able to implement pretty quickly. And it's not hard. Like some of the stuff that I saw that they were doing that was different from us was quite easy to implement. It was just kind of a, wow, this is not brain science, guys. So let's just make this happen. So the first thing that I noticed was, so my wife kept talking about this tea time. And I was like, do I look like a tea guy to you? Like I walked in and I was like, dude, I didn't know what to expect. I thought there was going to be people all like prim and proper. And yes, everybody was dressed beautifully and whatnot. It was at the Langham in London. It was a pretty nice hotel. And when we walked in, just everything was so orchestrated beautifully, and the way the food was presented and the way it was just tiered out and the way that it was systemized and the timing of everything. And then the surprise and delight. So it was my wife's cousin, it was my wife, it was myself, and it was my 8-year-old son, Dante, right? And we're sitting there, we're enjoying a good time, and I see one of the servers come out of nowhere with this big teddy bear, like almost half the size of my son. I go, how the hell am I going to get this thing home? So she comes over to the table and she presents it to my son. You would have thought that my son just got a duffel bag full of cash the way he lit up just by this stuffed animal. So I thought that was a nice little touch, especially with a kid at the table. And it was just so well done. And you might be saying to yourself, well, you're paying $100 a head or whatever it was. It should be like that. Yeah, you're right. But listen, here's the deal. All those little fine touches make the biggest difference. And I was laughing to myself because I was like, back home, we would have tried to do this so much more difficult and make it so much more complicated that it probably would have got executed not as eloquently. And I think that's what I want you guys to take away. It doesn't have to be this big, intricate thing. It just needs to be done really well. And you could tell they could do this with their eyes closed. And I just thought that was awesome. So it was official. I got through my first tea time, and I didn't feel like I wasn't supposed to be there. We were there for 3 hours. I couldn't believe that these tea times go so long. Not a rush in the world. It was like, you can leave when you're ready to leave, and we'll just keep bringing you food. We don't care how much we give you. And I just felt like, wow, that's true hospitality. That is the way a tea time should be done. So I just wanted to share that with you because I think there's some takeaways there that you could certainly grab and run with. The next thing I want to share with you is the night at Carlotta. So this was dinner. First night we were there, Italian restaurant. And we walk in, it was very dimly lit. So I said, I'm definitely not going to get food pics here. So that's the one thing. One thing I want you guys to pay attention to in your restaurants is your lighting. I don't think people pay enough attention to your lighting because you can have the best dishes in the world, but if they're not going to photograph nicely because of the poor lighting, people aren't going to share that on Instagram. People aren't going to share that on social media because they're like, dude, my food looks so much better in person. It doesn't do it justice. So I'm not even going to share it. I've been to several restaurants with very dim lighting. And I was like, I don't want to do this to the restaurant because it's not what it really is. Right. So fair enough. We got through dinner, but I love the server because my wife asked, what about this dish? It was a fish dish. And he was like, don't get it. It's got no flavor at all. And I was cracking up. He was like, yeah, the chef was just trying to do too much with this dish. And I tried it and I really didn't like it. I highly recommend, and I forget what he recommended to her, but he recommended to me the beef Wellington. And I'm like, beef Wellington at a Italian spot? Like this was weird. But he's like, yeah, we're trying it. It's seasonal. Go, get it. So I was like, all right, I'll take your lead on this. Got it. It was phenomenal. And I just loved how honest that server was to the menu. And I felt like, that was no disrespect to the chef at all. It was like he really wanted us to enjoy our time at that spot. And he wasn't going to let a poorly, what's the word I'm looking for? A poor suggestion ruin it. So he was very honest. And then the turn times were just insanely accurate. I mean, it didn't feel rushed whatsoever, but it was just boom, 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 boom. So the GM comes over afterwards and was like, how was everything? And I just thought that was a nice touch. And he said, yeah, we're trying these different seasonal menu items out. And the Wellington was a big question mark. And I'm happy you enjoyed it because it's something that we might consider, keeping on the menu or putting a little bit more of a different touch to it maybe later on. But long story short, I thought that was awesome. But here was where I was really impressed. So there was no check. They didn't put down a check presenter with receipt, nothing. You scanned a QR code, which was this beautiful piece on the table that looked like a piece of furniture, really. And you scanned the code, and it took you to this app, and it was called Sunday. It's a Sunday app. So I looked them up on Instagram, and their big thing is you could check out of any restaurant within 10 seconds. So I was like, let's give it a shot. So scan the code. We were able to split the bill. So my wife's cousin paid her half, and then, when I scanned, it said, oh, the remaining balance on this tab was this, and I paid with my credit card. It immediately asked if we wanted to leave a Google review. And I was just so impressed. I was in and out of there, and we didn't have to worry about, swapping cards and this and that. The checkout process was insane, and it was so quick. So what I say to myself is, I don't know why Sunday app isn't here yet in the States. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I would highly check it out if you're on the fence about changing your POS, because Sunday app was just out of this world. So take a peek at that. We were in and out of that restaurant in about, hour, 20 minutes, and it was fantastic. So to all you guys that were saying that the food wasn't going to be that good there, hands down, probably one of the best cities I've eaten at in a very long time. And I've been to Greece, I've been to Italy, I've been to Malta, I've been to Spain, and London's up there, guys. Don't sleep on London. I was even telling one of my buddies before the show, like, we were walking down the street and I passed this Italian restaurant and I saw these folks eating pizza with a fork and knife. And if you're ever in Italy, that's how they eat their pizza. So I was like, this place is probably authentic. So we walked in and I kind of looked around, saw what everybody was eating. It was mostly pizza, sat down, and it's probably top 5 pizzas I ever ate in my life. The other 3, 4 being in Italy. And I was like, wow. So, London, don't sleep on London's food game, man. It was on point. The other thing, real quick, before I wrap up about Carlotta did not have its own Instagram account. I thought this was pretty interesting. The hospitality group that operates all these restaurants, that was the Instagram account for all their restaurants. So there was one Instagram account, and all these different restaurants were posting under one hospitality group Instagram account, which I thought was very interesting. So, and then, I tagged them because I mentioned something about Sunday app. And within 24 hours, I got a DM reply from whoever's operating their social media. Like, so glad you had an awesome time. Let us know if you ever need anything. Looking forward to seeing you at some of our other restaurants. They were very hospitable through the DMs. And this was just textbook when it comes to interacting on social media with your guests. So there was this one experience which was pretty funny. So, my wife set up the whole trip, and she does a phenomenal job. Like, I just had to show up with my credit card, and that was pretty much my responsibility. But she had set up all these different tours, and she set up all the food and whatnot. So the one night we go to this schooner boat. So basically, these igloos that you can eat in? Well, it was like that, but it was a boat. And so we get there, and my wife is like, this kind of doesn't look like what it looked like on social media. It was not that nice, and it wasn't that exciting. So we get there and we were a couple minutes late, so shame on us. But we get there and we were thinking we were going to be out on the boat for like 45 minutes and you come back and you eat. And like they gave you like a charcuterie and they gave you a champagne and all that. But anyway, we get there. The guy jumps in. We get our food. The guy jumps in. We literally went like 3.5 minutes up the river. Or, you know, the little spot where the harbor. We literally went like 3.5 minutes up, 3.5 minutes back. And like, he was like, all right, I'm out. I got to go on break. And I was like, really? And I was like, asking my wife, like, how much did you pay for this? She was like, yeah, this sucked. So she's like, you know what? We were a little late. And I said when we got here, we weren't really caring about the whole boat ride thing. And I was like, Tor, why did you say that? That's why we went 3.5 minutes and we should have went a half an hour, right? But anyway, long story short, the point that I'm trying to make is not everything on social media is as glitz and glamour as it might look. And I want you to keep this in mind about your restaurant because I want you to be authentic. I want you to be what you truly are. So when they get there, it is what it is. And I think that this particular, I don't want to even call it a gimmick, but this particular event, whatever you want to call it, it was trying too hard. And we were kind of like disappointed, underwhelmed, if you will, when it came to that experience. So, you know, you're posting stuff on social media, make sure it is what it is. So when guests get there, they're not let down. They don't feel overwhelmed. I hate that word underwhelmed, and I hate being underwhelmed. So just keep that in mind. The big takeaway here before we wrap up is this, guys. One thing overall that I noticed in London was they didn't do a lot. Like they didn't try to do all these different things. They did 1, 2, maybe 3 things, but they did them with perfection. Like perfection. And I want you guys to think about this before we go. You know, how hard are you trying? And are you trying to do way too much and the execution just isn't there, right? Maybe you pare it back a little bit and you pick 3 things that your ideal guests would really appreciate and just hone in on doing those really awesome and start from there for 2026. I could guarantee you within a couple of months, you're going to perfect those. And people are going to be talking about those for days, months, years to come. So that's all I got, guys. Make sure you stay tuned to this podcast. If you haven't left a review, drop a review. We're getting those episodes up there now in numbers. And I want to make sure that I'm getting your feedback. If there's any specific interest or topics you want me to cover, I'm happy to cover those for you in future episodes. Have an amazing day, guys, and I'll catch you on the next episode soon.